Good morning. Who wanted to stay in bed today? Jeez Louise.
I want to stay in bed all day.
That was hard, wasn't it? Pitch black, the wind's blowing.
Yeah.
Ugh. I know. My alarm went off and I'm like, I really have to go. Apparently I do. And so do you. So thank you for being here. All right. Today in Illustrator we're going to work on two different chapters. There's not going to be a big project again, just some book homework. But one thing that's really important is that we all have the latest version of Illustrator loaded. And for some reason, when I'm working on my laptop at home, I can't get it to update, so I can't see some of the features. But I know they worked on my other computer, so at any rate, and I've tried to update, it's very weird. So I want you to go into your own account. So the little Adobe icon at the top right of your Mac, or wherever it lives on your PCs, and click on that. And when you see Illustrator, if there's anything that needs to be updated, let's just all do that right now. I'm thinking this is a small update right now, not the big one. I think we're all working on 2019. But just in case, I want to make sure that we all are running on the same updated version of Illustrator. So specifically, some features that we talk about later in the book work. Okay, so once you're sure that you have the latest version of Illustrator, if you're, again, in your app, once it says open, you know that you have the latest version. So go ahead and get Illustrator launched and opened, and we're all working with the newest and greatest version. And we're going to be working through Chapter 7 today, using color to enhance signage. All of you, I assume, are in Mary's Design Fundamentals class too, and I think you just did something with a logo and changed some color families with it. Did you do that manually, though, where you clicked on the pieces and changed colors?
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to learn some other ways that are pretty cool to colorize. So when Mary told me that, I'm like, well, then you already taught Chapter 7. Sweet. But no, not quite. In Illustrator, let's do a file open and navigate to your Illustrator folder and then to Chapter 7. And in Lesson Plan 7, we need Start 1. What we're going to do is take this, or these, pre-existing graphics, and we're going to work with color, and we're going to see how to change them rather than just maybe clicking on the shape and changing the fill color the way we've been doing so far. Let me share my screen with you guys also. All right, once we have this open, let's do a file save as, and let's call this your name and then poster, and save it in that same Lesson 7 file. Again, we're going to talk more about color modes, and I'm sure we've talked about it in all of your classes, but just as a reminder, they're very different, and the way you design and output is dependent on your final, how the product is going to be used, right? So anything that's seen on a screen is RGB color. It's light, red light, green light, and blue light, lit up in various mixtures to create all the other colors. That's how our monitors work. TVs, iPads, cell phones, whatever. It's light. Ink is where we put droplets of ink down and then smear them together to get different colors. And in commercial print, it's cyan, magenta, yellow, and then K is blackish or registration. It's the color that gives it the darkness. So for print, we always work in CMYK. In Photoshop, we do that at the end. But in Illustrator, when you're actually working, when you set up a file, if you tell it to be for print, it's going to know to make it high res in CMYK. Your file's going to start that way. The good news is that if you set it up wrong from the start, you can always go back and change the color space. So if you've been working in RGB and Illustrator for whatever reason, and it's ultimately for print, you can switch it to the CMYK color space at any point. All right, let's just do a file new and take a look at that dialog that pops up, because this is what I was saying. Based on these presets that they have for you, if you're in print, it's going to put you in the CMYK color space, and it's going to put you at high res 300 automatically. Now remember, Illustrator's kind of different. It's not resolution dependent. You can make it as big or as small as you want, but the starting graphic you make is based on being high resolution commercial print. If you were to do something with web, you would see that you're at RGB color mode down here, red, green, blue, light, and that you're at 72 dots or pixels per inch. So we can close that out. And like I said, if you've already made a document and you have it in the wrong color space, you can always change that by going up to File, and then Document Color Mode. And you can see which one is currently in use. There's a check mark in front of it, and if you needed to switch to the other, it's right there. So it's not like you have to start over from scratch. You can always switch your color modes after the fact. All right. So working with color, we've been doing this all along, where we make a shape that's filled in and we give it a stroke and or a fill. And we can colorize the inside of the shape with one click. So those of you that did your fruit or cell phones, when I look at the outline view of it, the apple should just be one outline shape and then filled with red. If I see a bunch of squiggles like this, you went in with like a red paintbrush and tried to paint inside there to color it in. Don't do that. Those are all vector paths and strokes that add up in your file size, and that's just not the right way to do it. The only time you do that is when you're trying to add some actual painted look to it, kind of like those images in the back where there's a photo and then they've been recreated intentionally with brush strokes, okay, to give it texture or some other look. It's not how you fill in a solid color. All right. We're going to start with applying existing colors that exist in our swatches. Let's see. Let's go to Artboard 1, make sure that's active, and then fit in the window. And that's going to be this big Bluegrass Festival guitar icon. Let's take our selection tool, and we're going to select the shape that is the red guitar. So if you click on it, you can see the outline here. The bounding box is way out here. And if you look in your properties panel, you'll see that it has a red fill. So if you accidentally grabbed another one of these, you'd see, oh, I have the blue fill. That means I got this one selected. So make sure you have the red shape. And then to change the color, we're going to click on that red fill, the chip itself, and that's going to pull up our swatches. Illustrator comes, every file in Illustrator comes with default swatches, and then any that are special to this file also would show up in this swatch view, but only for this file. In other words, if you found, if you created 6 new colors and you save them and you think they're always going to be available in your swatch panel, they aren't. They live with that file only and they go with it. If you want them to be available anytime you want, then you save them to your Creative Cloud libraries and you can actually pull from them. So in that Creative Cloud library, you can share or save swatches, brushes, logos, any artwork you use over and over, fonts, whatever. And then that way you just go to the cloud, to the library, grab what you want, and activate it. But without doing that, they only live within this file. Any new colors we make only live in this file. All right. Very simple from here. We're going to click to apply a new color swatch. So the first like 2 rows, maybe 3 rows, are always in most every Illustrator file. Anything that's added later comes at the end of the list. So there's a funky salmon orange kind of look down here that's called orange when we hover over it. If you don't like this view, or if you need more details, you can always change your view in this menu up here. You can see bigger thumbnails, you can see list views. So maybe being able to scroll through and find the one that's named orange is easier for you than hovering over it and waiting for the tooltip. Any way you do it, I'm going to go back. Whoops, I didn't mean to do that. I'm going to go back to the default view. So we applied this orange swatch, and notice there's a little white outline around it saying that it's the active, the one that's actively being used. To get this floating window to get out of your way, you just hit escape on your keyboard. So that's a way of applying a color that's already in your swatch family. That's pretty easy, and I'm sure you've done that by now. We can also make custom colors, and there's lots of different ways to do that. And we're going to work through a bunch of them in this class, but just know there's lots of ways of doing this. So we're going to go and select with our selection tool this gray shape down here where the strings of the guitar are anchored. Notice your fill over here is filled with gray. Go ahead and click on that again. And instead of going from the swatches, which is this view that we have right here, we're going to click on this color mixer, which looks kind of like an artist's paint palette with dabs of color on it. And from here, we're going to pick a color, well, one of three ways. We're either going to select something inside of this color hue box at the bottom, just by eyedropping it, or we're going to play with the cyan, magenta, and yellow color sliders, or if we know exact numbers for how much cyan, magenta, yellow, and black are added for this color, we can type those in here. We're just going to click somewhere in the yellow-orange zone down here to load up a yellow-orange color. Whatever you pick is fine because we're actually going to change it together. But if you wanted to do it visually, this is one way of doing it.
What's this I've seen by K and then on here?
Yes. That you can change. So if anybody does not see the CMYK mixers, there's a little menu up here. This allows you to change how you're mixing color. So switch it out of RGB into CMYK. That's interesting that that happened. Anybody else have that going on? Okay. Yeah, so here's where, and remember, you can spell out colors in lots of ways. RGB, there's 3 specific numbers. HSB is hue, saturation, brightness. Those are 3 numbers that you type in to get a color. CMYK, and then WebSafe RGB. Those are the red, green, and blue colors that are guaranteed to work on all monitors across web applications. So yeah, make sure you're in CMYK. And then if we want to, we can specify an exact number. So if you type, if you highlight this first box and the cyan is 3, if you hit tab, it's going to jump to that next box so you don't have to keep clicking. 2 for magenta, 98 for yellow, and 0 for black. And that's the version, which to me is a yellow, not an orange. But
what'd you do for cyan?
3, 2, 98, 0.
Okay.
All right, colors that we make in this color mixer. So on this palette version, they're not saved anywhere except for what piece we had active, and so therefore this piece is colorized that way. But it's not saved in our swatches yet. They're just like a one-time mix it up and use it unless you do something beyond that. All right, so we like this color, we want to save it as a swatch, and right now it doesn't exist. If we go to our swatch panel, it's not here. It would be in this row after the orange as a new color swatch, but it doesn't exist. All right, let's go with our selection tool and click on the black circle. And notice that it has a black fill. We're going to click on that to change the black fill. And in the color mixer option again, we're going to type in our CMYK coordinates. I'm going to go 0 for cyan, 84, 100, and 0. So I'm on 208 in your book if you're wondering where I'm getting these numbers or you fall behind. So 0, 84, 100, 0. And that gives us kind of an orange color. All right. Go back to your swatches panel. So just click on the other icon up here. And we have this new color set up here, but notice it's not in our swatches. We want to add it to our swatches. So at the bottom right of the swatch panel, we have the new icon and it says new swatch. Click on that and it's going to populate with what we have going on right now, what's selected, so those numbers. If you want to save the swatch name as it's CMYK numbers, that's the default. It's going to fill it in for you. If you want to give it a name, we're going to call it dark orange. You can do that. And then before we move on, let's look at these other options that we have. Add to my library. Uncheck that because we're just doing a book project in class. This is not something that you eternally want to keep, but if it's something that you're working on for a client, this is their color green you're always going to use, and you're going to use it in more than one document, go ahead and save that to your library and call it a certain color. The other thing that we can do is notice right here it says global color and it's checked. That's the default behavior and that's good. Global color is really cool because if you edit a color in your swatch panel, maybe your client says that's too dark. Yeah.
Not off top, but on the fill box, which that we normally click on to change our color, on the panel up in the right hand corner there, when we bring that one down at the bottom of that, it says create new swatch.
Okay.
Is that save the swatch that's currently there?
Yeah.
Or is that just something different?
I would assume it's the one that's currently active. Yeah, there's menu ways to save a new swatch. There's icon ways. There's probably keyboard shortcut ways. There's like 4 to 5 ways to do everything in the software. It just depends on what your workflow works with you. So save a new swatch, you get this. The global check mark means that if your client says, yeah, that's too burnt orange, make it less burnt. And believe me, this is stuff clients say. This is how they speak to you and you go, huh? What does less burnt mean? But let's say you have that color in use on 50 different shapes on your document. Do you want to go back and pick them all? No. Do you even want to have to go, like, pick this one, and then there's that cool feature where you do select same fill color, and it would select all the things that have that same fill color? That's still a lot of work. In global color, if this is checked, and it's a global color in your swatch, when you update it in the swatch, it automatically updates throughout your document, whether it's selected or not. If that color was in use, it gets updated. So global swatches are very helpful, and almost always that's why it's the default. They assume that that's the best workflow, and I agree. You'd want that on. So we're going to leave that on. And we're going to say OK. And look at your swatch panel, and the new one was added. When we hover over it, it says dark orange. Do you guys notice anything different about that swatch itself in the swatch panel? Pardon? The little thingy on the corner? Oh, you're in a different view too. What does it look like? That might be. Does it say? Oh, no, that's something else. In the little swatch view, but you also see it on your view, just further over to the left. Do you guys see how that little corner is like turned up? There's a white corner. Anytime you see that, that means it's a global color. So there's one other one already in here. Do you guys see the turquoise color up higher that's got that same look? Those are the only 2 global colors in this family right now. So if we were to change either one of those in the swatch panel, they would change anywhere they're being used in the document. The rest of the colors are not. They're just the standard set that comes with Illustrator. All right. All right. Creating a copy of a swatch. So one of the easiest ways to create and save a color as a swatch is to make a copy of an existing swatch and then tweak it. So we're going to create another swatch by copying this dark orange that we just made, and we're going to tweak it and give it a new name. With our circle still selected, so make sure that that's still selected on your artboard. And with it still selected in our swatch panel. So let's go to our swatch panel and make sure that there's a white line around this little swatch right here. We're going to go up to the menu up in the right corner of the swatch panel, and we're going to say duplicate swatch. And it's going to put one right next to it, and it says dark orange copy. Make sure that your circle is still selected and click on that original dark orange to make sure that that's the one that's applied to it. And then from there, we're going to click on the light blue guitar shape, which is actually this one. So you get that next shape out. Click on that light blue guitar shape. Click on your fill box. And then that dark orange copy, the second one that we have here, we're going to double click on it. And we're going to edit it straight from here. So the first thing we're going to do is change the name of it. We're going to call it Mustard. And then we're going to give it some specific coordinates. 11, 23, 100, and 0. Keep it as a global swatch and have the add to my library turned off. We don't need that, and say OK. So now if we look at our swatch panel, that second one is now called Mustard and it's a different color. So to make a new swatch, we just duplicated an existing one, double clicked on it, renamed it, changed the color, coordinates of it, and we're good. We have a new swatch. Also make sure that that mustard is applied to our shape, and it isn't until we click on it. So that light blue shape was highlighted. Now we need to click on the mustard swatch to apply it. So your second wave out should be that yellow color. You can hit escape to temporarily get rid of your swatch panel. Editing a global swatch. So any of those that have that white corner means that it's global. This grayish shape above bluegrass, it's now yellow for us. Let's click on that one. We're going to also select the green shape at the same time. So that one's selected. We're going to hold Shift, and we're going to come out here and select this green shape. So whatever we do now is going to apply to both of these shapes. They're both selected. Notice when we go to the fill and stroke, we get question marks because there's two different things. So it doesn't know how to answer that question for us. It's not yellow or green. I mean, it's one or the other, but it's not both. Click on that fill box, the question mark, to get your swatches to pop back up. And we're going to apply the swatch called dark orange. Now if we want to edit that dark orange, and right now how many shapes are filled with dark orange? How many shapes are colorized that way?
3.
3. How many do we literally have selected?
2.
Just 2. Okay, that's important to note. We have those 2 shapes selected, but we don't have the circle in the middle right now. But this is the power of global color. You don't have to have them selected. It doesn't matter. We're going to double click on the dark orange swatch to pop it up and to edit it. And we're going to change our magenta to be 64. And we're going to turn on the preview button down here to see how it looks. Notice all 3 of them changed, not just the 2 that we had selected, because it is a global swatch. And then we're going to say OK. So it doesn't matter if you have them selected or not if they're a global swatch. All right, take your selection tool and we're going to click away to deselect, and then we're going to come back and select this first shape that we worked with, just kind of the salmon color, that very first inside big guitar shape. And we're going to learn how to edit a non-global swatch, which is very similar. Click on your fill box, the swatch, to open your swatch panel. And we'll see the little white thin line is around the swatch called orange, meaning that's what's applied. It's not a global swatch, doesn't have that white triangle in the bottom. We're going to escape out of that window and then deselect our guitar. And then if we want to get back to our swatch panel, here's a way of getting to it when you don't have something selected on your artboard that automatically brings up that fill property area. If you want your swatch panel to be like a free floating panel that's available to you, you have to find it in the Windows dropdown and go and load up the swatches. Now you have it as a free floating panel, always available to you whether you have selections or not. Okay, so there's your swatch panel. Just another way to get to it is the bottom line. All right, let's double click on the orange swatch in our swatch panel with nothing selected currently on our artboard. And we're going to edit this by calling it Guitar Orange. And change the name. And we're going to change our CMYK a little bit. Magenta is going to go to 29. And yellow is going to go to 100. So 0, 29, 100, 0. We do want this to be a global color from now on. So we're going to check the global color box up here, and we're going to turn on our preview. And notice nothing changed in our document. There was nothing to preview because it's not applied to anything yet. We're just building it in our swatch panel, or editing it, if you will. All right, say okay. We now have that color, Guitar Orange, existing. Click on your guitar shape again to select it. Go over to your property panel and click on the fill. It's that salmony orange right now. And instead, we're going to change it to the one called Guitar Orange. Click away to deselect everything, and then let's save at this point. So the process is pretty much the same. You double click to edit the swatches, rename them, give them specific coordinates, tell them if they're going to be a global swatch or not, and then you apply it. Bottom line, you click to apply it somehow. All right. So that's 2 ways or 3 ways of changing color already. Now we're going to create color using the color picker. So that spectrum is what we see in Photoshop, and you'll see it in InDesign, where we click on, there's a long bar, a tall bar that's like the rainbow colors, and you pull down through it to find the color that you like, and then a big box shows up next to it, and it goes from white to black, and then tints and shades of that color, whatever you have selected, right? So you can get a red, and then you can make it a darker red, a lighter red, whatever. That's that thing, the color picker. All right, with your selection tool, we're going to click on the blue shape. Let's see, yellow, mustard. I feel like I have mine colorized goofy, but whatever. We're going to click on this dark blue shape, and we're going to double click on the fill box. Oops, I lied. We're not going to click on that one. I lied. We're going to go to the bottom of our tools panel. Over here on the left, we have on top, we have our color fill, and behind it we have the stroke. So instead of being foreground and background like it is in Illustrator, one of them is your fill, the other is the stroke. Whichever one is on top is the one that you're picking the color for or targeting. So if stroke is on the top, I'm changing stroke colors. If the fill chip is stacked on top, I'm dealing with fill. So from here, we're going to double click, and that's going to pick or pull up this color picker. This is what I said we see in Photoshop also. So as you pull up and down in your hues over here, you get your different colors. And then in the big box, you get your saturations and your brightness. So how much white is added to it, how much black is added to it. All right. We're going to drag in our color spectrum bar down into the orange family down here. It doesn't really matter which one you grab. And then drag around in your color field over here to get something that's more saturated and brighter. So something in that top right corner of whatever color you happen to pick. And then we have all of our color fields that we can name them here. So this is also what you see in Photoshop. You can name color, like I said, by hue, saturation, brightness, or by RGB, or by CMYK, or by hex number. And that weird thing is how we name color on websites. So if you want white type on a website, it's hashtag, they all start that way, FFFFFF, or 000000. Black and white. All these other weird things are colors in between, but that's how we dictate color on the web. So we want to actually work in CMYK, so go over to the cyan. We're going to do 8, 50, 100, and 0. Whoops, not 1,000. So inks are in percentages. The max they can be is 100, the lowest they can be is 0. RGB is from 1 to 255. So they're a little bit different. So these are percentages, and when you're happy with that color, we're going to say okay, and put that color as our color picker right here. It also loaded it as our fill color over here in the appearance, and it applied it to that shape that we had selected. Click on the fill color. I again have a swatch panel floating freely. That's a little confusing. I'll put it over here. Click on your fill color to get your swatch panel to pop up over here as well. And we're going to make a new swatch out of this color we just created. So click on that. This one is called, I feel like we already did burnt orange. Did we? Burnt orange. It's going to be a global color, so if we need to change it, we can. We don't need to add it to our library, and we're going to say, okay. So that just added it in this 4th row of swatches. There's our next global color that we just created. Click to deselect everything on your artboard, and we're going to save. I'm going to close my free-floating swatch panel for now. You can get to it other ways. Okay, Illustrator is loaded with a ton of different libraries of swatch colors. And have you guys talked about the Pantone swatch colors and design fundamentals yet? I'm guessing no. Okay, well, you'll know in just a second here. Maybe you've talked about them, but not really a lot of them. Have you seen this bad boy? Okay. Toys. So, this is what, when you are working with commercial printers, these are swatch books from Pantone. So, solid coated. You feel like you're at a paint store thinking about painting your house, right? So these are all the spot colors that Pantone makes. And if your client is John Deere, you guys all familiar with John Deere, whether you're a farmer or not, that's a pretty particular green, right? McDonald's yellow and red are not any yellow and red. They're very specific. So if your client is John Deere and you have to use John Deere green, and you pick this gem, and it was supposed to be this one or whatever, it's a problem. So Pantone inks are called spot inks. They're mixed up. They're not a combination of cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. They are a can of paint literally sitting on a shelf at a commercial printer that's already exactly mixed to these coordinates, and it's a 5th plate in the printing process that ink sticks to. So wherever the John Deere logo goes, the ink is applied to the words John Deere in their little logo, and it's that color of ink. So to get color to match, designers need these, right? We need these books. So this is the Pantone. These are spot colors, but here's a CMYK color book that tells you the different coordinates. If you want this color, here's how you get it. So these Pantone books are awesome. I'll show you the one that we had until recently. We're very happy to have this, too. Can you just tell how much older this one looks? Doesn't it look dated? Pantone Color Formula Guide. I don't know what year this is from. I mean, granted, some things don't change. These still exist. But these color books, this gem here is about $800. So, yeah, right? You're like, what? Just to get, actually, I take that back. Each one of these is about 200 to 300, but in bulk, this was cheaper. So we're really super excited. Plus, I think they're having a sale that day. Kelly and Mary and I about nuts. We got Pantone books. But we need these because this is how we design. When we get our new printer soon, like the 23rd.
It's like Christmas. You're counting down the days.
Well, the 23rd is when it was supposed to be. One piece of it was on back order. Anyway, we'll be able to actually say, I want this Pantone color, and that new printer better spit it out. It's so exciting. Really
Sending
so
it back if
excited.
it don't.
So, these Pantone color books, how do you get it to work in Illustrator? Well, there's libraries built in. And when you find out that the yellow that you want is Pantone 137C, you go into that library, you pull it up, you add that swatch to your swatch for that file, and you're done. It's there. It's really quite cool. So, I need these. All right, we're going to add a spot color. So like I said, these Pantone spot colors are not made using C, M, Y, and K mixes. They're a separate can of paint, literally, that's already pre-mixed that exact color. So let's go up to Window, and then all the way down to Swatch Libraries. And I want you to look at all these different libraries. And the cool thing is, let's say you're looking at colors for nature. So go down to Nature, and you say, you know what, I want beach colors. Click on that. Here is a palette of colors that they consider to be beach colors. This is a free-floating, freestanding swatch. This is not automatically added to your swatches for this file. It's just showing you what they are. However, if you click on any one of these, they would be added to the swatches for this document. I'm going to close that out. I'm going to go back to Window, Swatch Libraries. And again, just kind of look around at some of the different things that you have here. Metal, who knows what we're going to get there. Here's some different metal tones that you could probably add gradients and other features to get some really cool, realistic metal. Ultimately, what I want you guys all to do is go to Window, Swatch Libraries, and then I want you to go to Color Books. All right? Besides Pantone, another one that's pretty common in our design world is Toyo. True Match, I've heard of, but look at how many Pantone color books there are. So if you're working on uncoated paper or coated paper, those are different. The way ink sticks to coated paper, glossy paper, is different the way ink sticks to normal paper, especially like cheap copy paper. It bleeds more. So there's metallic, there's pastels, there's the color bridge, and the solid coated and uncoated. And the one that we're going to choose is Pantone Solid Coated. So, whoops, where'd we go? Color Books, Pantone plus Solid Coated. That's the color book we want to open up. And I want you to expand this to see how many swatches there are. Solid coated, here we go. In real life, here they are. There they are. So if your client says, yep, I want this one, Pantone 7641C, and you're like, oh my God, where is it? Where is it in here? Thankfully, there's a search feature. So we are going to type in that search feature 137, and as we're typing, it's going to limit it down to what's available. 137, and then if we hover over them, we have 137C, that's the one we want, or 1375C. We want the color 135C, so we click on it. We think nothing happened. Well, what happened is that it's now in your actual swatch panel for this file. And when we're done, we can close that out. We only added that one swatch, so we close it out. All right, we're going to move on to our next artboard. So go to number 2 artboard. It's called Pantone. It's this one. Make sure you can see it all in your window. And we're going to click on the gray guitar shape to select it. We're going to go to our fill box that's gray. And we're going to see a new color chip added. And if we hover over it, it says Pantone 137C. Click on that. That's the Pantone color that we just added. It was added to our swatch panel and only for this document. What looks different about this in our swatch panel?
Like a little black dot over the triangle.
Exactly. So not only is it a global color because it would change, that black dot in the corner means it's a spot color. It's a Pantone spot color. It cannot, well, it can be recreated, but this is going to require a 5th ink on the press and a 5th plate on the press. That equals a $500 bill, just so you know. That makes more money, right? It costs more to print whenever you do specialty things, spot colors, metallics, varnishes, glosses, those all add up. So if your client says, hey, John Deere green has to be Pantone, yada, 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 they don't care. And that's very true. That's not an issue. But if your client is like, oh, this is my favorite color, I like that one. And you go, okay, but it's a 5th color, it's a 5th ink, more money. Let's see if we can recreate it in CMYK mix and get close and make you happy. That's cheaper. That's usually smarter. Pantone is when it has to be a certain color, and color matching is critical. Think about like the fashion industry where, you know, whatever you think you're buying online, it better not show up totally different looking, or anything where color is critical. This is where it's really important. All right, deselect that. Let's just save our file at this point. The other thing that we can do with Pantone colors is that we can create and save a tint of that. So remember, this is not the 4 inks mixed together. This is a specific can of paint that they literally pull down and use. What if we say, you know what, we want that to be lighter. We want it to be, add some white to that paint, make a tint of it. We can do that. We're going to select the 2 gray shapes on this document. Puts a bounding box around both of them. We're going to click on our fill in the properties panel, and we're going to fill it with that Pantone 137C right now. So it's going to be the same color as the body. However, we're going to mix this color a little bit. So go to the color mixer at the top of the panel, and notice it looks different than it did before. We don't have CMYK. We have, here's the color of your paint, Pantone 137C. How much white do you want to add to it? How much of a tint do you want to give it? So you can pull this slider and keep adding white to it, or you can type in a specific number in here, and that's going to add that much white. We're going to take the white value to 70%, or actually the ink value to 70%. And then from there, we're going to go back to our swatch panel, and we're going to click on the new swatch button down at the bottom. And notice it didn't even give us a chance to name it or do anything about it. It added one, and if we hover over it, it's called Pantone 137C 70%. We don't get to name it. It already has a very formal name, and we just did a tint of 70% with it. Click to deselect on your artboard. All right, we are going to convert some colors now. The command of edit colors allows us to switch between different color modes like CMYK, RGB if we screwed up. We can change our blending mode or blend colors. We can invert colors, which is flip them to the opposite on the color wheel. And a variety of different things with that command. So the first thing we're going to do is select everything on this artboard. So select all on active artboard. Okay, that's going to get all of the pieces that we see on this artboard. And let's remind ourselves that right now, this is a Pantone color, and this is a Pantone color with white added. How many extra plates do we have now? 2 in addition to the 4, right? So we tell our client, now you're looking at this much money versus if we could do it all in process color, CMYK, it would save you $500, whatever it is. If we want to convert all of this to CMYK and see what it's going to look like, we can. So let's try that right now. Edit, and then edit colors. Where are you? There we go, right in the middle, staring me in the face. And we see the option of convert to CMYK. We're going to click on that. Anybody notice any huge shift? At least on your monitor? No? Think your client's going to be okay with this $500 savings? I think so. Just because they found a color in that book doesn't mean we can't recreate it in CMYK. Some you can't, or some you want to go that route, but we just saved them a lot of money and made the process a lot easier. So what this did was it converted the selected artwork to be CMYK. So presumably this pink piece and the white, that was all CMYK to start with, but these other two pieces, or three, were not. They were spot colors. They have now been converted. Click to deselect. By the way, this did not take it out of, the chips are still in our swatch panel. We can still apply them as Pantones, but it converted the selected artwork to be CMYK instead. All right, another cool thing that we can do is we can copy appearance attributes. So if something has a stroke color, a stroke width, a stroke design, maybe it's dotted, and a fill color that you like, and you want to apply that, let's say it's an apple, and it's filled with red, and it's got a gradient red to dark red stroke on the outside and a drop shadow, and you love that, and you want to apply that to all 700 apples on your page. Sounds horrible, right? There's a cool feature. It's the eyedropper in Illustrator. In Photoshop, it acts differently. It samples the color where you're picking. In Illustrator, the eyedropper samples all of the attributes. So whatever you've applied to that thing, strokes, colors, fills, drop shadows, effects, it samples all of that, and it applies it to whatever you have selected. So you could have all the other 700 apples selected and then go sample the attributes of your one perfect apple, and it would apply that to all of them. All right, let's use our selection tool and pick this pink shape. And then we're going to take our eyedropper tool right here, and we're going to sample something that we like the attributes of it. We're going to sample the circle shape in the middle, and notice to the piece that we had selected, it applied the same fill, the same stroke color, and stroke width. So it applied that same attribute. If we didn't want that stroke on there, we could come over to our appearance panel, we can click on the stroke, and we can say none. I really didn't want that, I just wanted the color. Click, whoops, didn't mean to do that, undo. Take your selection tool, that's what I forgot to do. I was still on the eyedropper, and when I clicked in the white, it thought I was sampling white. I didn't mean to do that. So with your selection tool, click away to deselect. All right, in Illustrator, we can also save colors in color groups. So in the last half an hour, we've made like 4 or 5 new colors of burnt orange and dark. And they're right now in our swatch panel in the 3rd or 4th row, just hanging out. We can always put them in their own folder, if you will, and call them something and have those colors live there. So maybe you're working on a project and your logo colors are always these 3 colors. You can put them in a color group and be able to easily find them in your swatch panel rather than bopping all over looking for them in the swatch panel. All right, let's open our swatch panel through the window version. So window swatches. That way we don't have to have anything selected. We just have a free-floating swatch panel here. Guitar orange, let's see if we can find that. That's that first one we made. We're going to hold down our Shift key and we're going to go all the way to the end of the row and click on our Pantone. So that selects all of those swatches that we've made over the course of this chapter. And then at the bottom of our panel, we have all these icons. The one in the middle that looks like a folder says New Color Group. We're going to click on that, and it says, what do you want to name this one? And we're going to call it Guitar Colors. That now took all of those swatches, put them in a folder called Guitar Swatches, and just moved them down here. So now they're a color swatch family. Notice there's one above it. Well, actually, there's two above it. If we hover over the names of these others, we see the color group above it is called Brights, and the color group above that is called Grays, from 100% K, black, all the way down to 0, and all those percentages in between. So we have all of the free floating, if you will, swatches that come with a file, and then we have our special ones that we've created. To deselect this color group, you just need to click in a blank area, a dark gray area of your swatch panel, and that takes the highlights away from all of those. And then just so you know, you can rearrange these. So if you wanted the Pantones first, you can click and drag them. Notice when you get that blue line, when you let go, that's where it's going to rearrange. So I could move and put my 2 Pantones first if I want. You can pull them out of here, back up to the free range colors, if you will. You can pull colors from here down into your color group. You can just drag them around. All right, color guide. This is where I think it gets kind of fun, actually.